After a long wait, we are finally on the drive of the Kia Sonet. Now this is a car that has got people talking about it since the concept launch at the Indian Auto Expo earlier this year, and a big part of that was the way it looked, and thankfully that has not changed. This still looks very much like that concept that we all love, but how good is it to drive and is it worth buying are the questions we are going to answer today in this video. Now you've probably seen hundreds of videos where people are explaining the Sonet's looks and design, and why not? You know, it's such an important part of the whole car that it really can't be just glossed over. You have to look at it in detail. So let's start with the front. Now you have these very sleek looking headlamps, but they are a lot more busier than you think. You know, Kia call it the crown jewel headlamps, which means there's a lot of stuff going on inside them. Then you of course have the very famous heartbeat LED strip, which is very cool, very unique touch that Kia have offered. Then there's the signature Kia grille, the tiger nose grille, with of course these red accents because it is a GT line after all. And that also means you also get a dash of red for this air intake. And now speaking of the air intake, this very design for the air intake is again very specific to the GT line. The tech line will not get this. And you also have chrome for the fog lamps. Over to the sides you have these sporty looking 16-inch wheels. The GT of course gets the red brake calipers, a chunky chrome strip for the high rising window line, and a blacked out panel for the part of the roof, and you also have roof rails for that added SUV-ness. Now the rear of the Sonet is not as busy as the front. It's a lot more elegant and subtle back here. You have these nice LED tail lamps. You have this big reflector strip that joins the two that looks especially good in the dark. Low down you have this gloss black finish for the fog diffuser and the fog exhaust. Don't really need it, but it definitely adds to the sporty appeal of the car. It is a very nice looking car from the back, and owners would like that as well. Now like the exterior, the interior of the Sonet is done and dusted as well. We've seen this plenty of times before, but there's just so much to talk. Starting with the design, you have this nice big 10.2-inch touchscreen that merges with this instrument cluster, very typical Kia. The instrument cluster itself is now semi-digital, which means the speed readouts are digital, but you still have the needles for the rev counter. Then you have this nice flat bottom steering wheel, again with the red stitching, thanks to it being a GT line, very sporty to hold, very nice. All the buttons and switches feel very tactile, you know, the quality is right up there with the best. Center console is a bit cluttered, you feel like there's a lot going on, but it's all where you'd want it to be. Fan controls, AC controls, you also have ventilated seats for the front seats on the Sonet, and that is very impressive. Low down there are plenty of cubby holes and plenty of storage space. You get nice storage here, 2 USB ports, of course wireless charging up front. Then you have 2 cup holders, and of course you have the sunroof as well. But the equipment list just goes on and on. 2 USB ports, a Bose sound system, ambient lighting, and an air purifier that Kia calls virus protection. That does not mean you'll start violating COVID safety guidelines. And speaking of safety, you also get 6 airbags, a rear view camera, front and rear parking sensors. I mean, this thing is absolutely loaded. Well, so overall, it is a very premium cabin. You definitely get what you pay for. Now jump in the back seat and you realize that the Sonet is in fact the Venue's cousin. You know, space is not the best. You do struggle for legroom, especially if you are as tall as me at 6 feet. There is a plenty amount of headroom, and you also get a decent width. But again, getting 3 people back in here will be a squeeze. That said, you do get AC vents, a USB charging slot, and of course a little small place to put your phone inside. Now this is what most of you were waiting for. What is the Sonet like to drive? Well, it does share its powertrain with the Hyundai Venue, and we have driven that a fair amount. So if we are to assume anything, it should be nothing but impressive. And we aren't wrong. You see, it's the same engine that we've seen on the Venue, 118 bhp turbo petrol, and even on this Sonet you get the same characteristics. There's a good amount of grunt in the mid-range. It is an engine that likes to be revved, it likes to be run in the high RPMs. So it's a very fun drive experience for someone who enjoys driving. What's also good is this IMT gearbox. Now I know it's not a fully manual gearbox, you don't have that clutch pedal for that extra control, but the gears itself are very well defined, and you do get a fair amount of control while shifting. So it's not like you miss that clutch pedal. In fact, it's even a convenience to not have it in the city. You know, you get that control but you don't have to stress your leg as well, and that's a big plus. Now the other big plus with the Sonet is the ride quality. We were expecting it to be like the Venue, with the hint of firmness over those low speed bumps, but it's not that. In fact, you do get a nice supple cushion ride. Not as good as the Nexon or even the Brezza, but in comparison to the Venue, this is very, very good. Bumps like those are really, really well contained. You don't really feel them, and it's overall a very comfortable car to drive as well. Now the Sonet is aimed at a young audience, an audience that loves to drive, so handling and driving dynamics are really important. And well, the Sonet doesn't disappoint at all. The car-like driving position, the nice stable suspension, it all comes together to offer a nice and enjoyable drive. So if you are someone who's keen on driving, this is a car that you would really appreciate. Now there are plenty of options to choose from when it comes to the Sonet. So once we were done with the petrol engine, we also brought along the diesel variant with the 6-speed automatic gearbox. And what was that like? Now diesels might seem like they're on their way out, but when it comes to an SUV, they account for a big sales chunk. So of course, with the Sonet, you had to have a diesel, and what you get is a 1.5 litre 113 horsepower diesel engine that is also seen on the Hyundai Verna. So we know that it's very refined, it's nice and quiet. Apart from a slight drone at low revs, there's nothing really to fault here. Of course, the power delivery is a lot more linear. There's none of that surge you get from the turbo petrol engine, and that's what you want when you have a diesel. You want to cruise along, and not be bothered. Mated to this engine is a 6-speed automatic gearbox. Now this is a conventional automatic, not like the IMT or the DCT that you see on the other models. But again, it is very smooth, it's very relaxed. You also get a manual mode if you want to switch gears yourself. So overall, it is a very nice package if you're the sorts that loves a lot of cross-country traveling and you want a car that is refined and comfortable. The Sonet diesel is also a very, very strong option. So in conclusion, the Sonet does justice to its hype. There is no denying that its USP is its design, but it also backs it up by getting its basics right. There is currently nothing in the compact SUV segment that can match the Sonet for sheer value. Sure, we would have liked a bit more space in the back, and we would have also liked a proper manual gearbox for that turbo petrol engine. But these are minor blemishes in an otherwise accomplished and very appealing package. So if you're the sorts who was waiting with a pen in your hand to write that check, go ahead, because the Sonet is a car you'd be very happy to own.